Well, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us for the second Family Falcon live chat. My name is Doreen Floyd, and I'm one of the Associate Deans here at Bentley University. And tonight is probably one of the best sessions that we're going to have. So we have the chance to spend about 45 minutes together to give you a chance to hear a little bit more about what it's like to be a parent of a student attending Bentley University. As a parent of 3 children who have, one is graduated from college and 2 are currently in college, I know that this is an incredibly exciting time for you and your family. And as someone who has worked with a number of parents who are sending their students to college, I also know it can be a very stressful time. And in the same way that your students have been preparing to come to Bentley, you have been preparing for this day. And some of you may have been dreading this day for probably the past 18 years. Well, tonight is your chance to talk to our panel of experts who happen to be some of my greatest colleagues here at Bentley and tremendous parents themselves. So you will have an opportunity to ask them the questions that really are front and foremost on your mind. So without further ado, let me have them introduce themselves to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brooks Ferry. I am the head athletic trainer here at the university. I've been here now for 28 years. I have a daughter who is a senior in high school, but also have a son who goes here currently. And turn it off over to Claudette.
Hello, everyone. My name is Claudette Blood, and I'm the director of the multicultural. I'm thinking it into existence. I'm actually the director of the Summer Transition Education Program and program coordinator for Bentley. This is my 27th year. I am the proud mother of 4 sons. One is a graduate of Bentley, and one is currently a senior at another college. And I have a set of twins that are in their senior year of high school. So I'm preparing the empty nest syndrome soon, hopefully.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ernie Leffler, and I'm the chief of the University Police and executive director of public safety. I've been at Bentley for, I'm going on my 20th year right now, and I am responsible for safety and security of the entire campus.
So we have a lot of experience here at the university, but we also, first and foremost, are parents. So Chief, maybe you can introduce your 2 sons to the rest of the audience.
Absolutely, yes. My wife and I are the proud parents of 2 sons, both of whom graduated from Bentley. The first, my oldest son is Evan Leffler. He graduated the class of 2007. He was an RA while here at Bentley for 1 year and participated in a number of other programs. And upon graduation, he ended up getting a job with a management consulting firm called Ranzal, which is, and he's currently based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My second son is Andrew Leffler. He is a graduate of the class of 2011. Both of them, by the way, majored in management. And Andrew was a lot more active than Andrew was when he was on campus. He was involved in a number of student activity groups. He was a resident assistant for 3 years out of his 4 at Bentley. He was the president of the senior class cabinet, and he was also the president of his class and the commencement speaker at the 2011 graduate ceremonies. He has had a couple of jobs since he left Bentley. He started out at working with Amazon in Phoenix, Arizona. Then he went to Google in California, and he's currently the senior account executive representative for Uber on the West Coast in Canada.
Pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Well, my handsome son's name is Bennett Andrew Blood, and he graduated in the class of 2012. He transferred into Bentley, so he started off as a sophomore. He started with several clubs and organizations, the Gaming Society, which he is an avid computer buff, the Bentley Investment Group, and we have something called the Ballroom Dance. It's incredible, and I hope that your children will get involved. He was involved with the ski club, as well as there's an archery club and organization on campus, and he was involved with that as well. He wasn't a commuter, but he was involved with the Commuters Association. He's currently working for CGI. He was a computer information center, computer systems person here at Bentley, and now he's working as a senior Q&A specialist for CGI.
Okay.
And my son is Austin Ferry. I'm the only one in the panel whose son is still in college right now, but he's a senior. this year at the university. He is a finance major and a member of the baseball team here. He also works with the event staff and had an internship with WT Fallon Insurance.
Pretty great panel. In full disclosure, I also have a daughter who attends Bentley University. Her name is Lucille Beverly Floyd, and she is also a rising senior. So her experience has been incredible. So in 13 days, the time that you have been waiting for will be here. 13 days from now, we will be welcoming your student to Bentley. And I want you to know that we are incredibly excited for that day. It might look a little bit different in your house. You may be having some really great, robust conversations about what it's going to be like, talking about hopes and dreams. And the next minute, you might be arguing about, do you have sheets? And have you finished packing? And have you said goodbye to your siblings and family members? And that's all normal. That's incredible, and it's fine. But it really is centered around the fact that the family dynamic, as you know, it is about to change. From our work with students, we know that some things are pretty consistent. Some of the things that your students worry about, they may not talk about them in the way that we're talking about them now, but they worry about whether or not they're going to like the school. You know, this is a big choice, and is it the right choice for them? Will they get along with their roommates? We know that there is no way in the world that no one would have trouble living with your son or your daughter. But it's a different story when they talk about living with people that they don't know about. They worry about whether or not you'll trust them. Will they make good decisions? Of course they think they will. But, you know, being away from you for the first time for a long time can be really difficult. They worry about being homesick, whether or not they're going to choose the right major, whether or not they will be successful here in the way that they've been able to be successful in high school or at their previous school. We will help to make you feel more comfortable with that, because it is hard not to be successful here, but that's something that's really weighing on their minds. They worry about finances, and they also worry about how often it is that they should be in contact with you. Your expectations are probably a little bit different than theirs. Interestingly enough, you worry about things that are fairly similar, but a little bit differently. You worry about whether or not you lose touch with your student. They're in your house right now. You may see them more than you want to, or not enough, but what will it be like when they go to the university? I can promise you that they won't forget you, but just that question seems to be very real. Will they make good decisions? You have been there to guide them along the way, but now your relationship will be a little bit different. And who's going to make sure that they go to class? Will they get up on time? What happens if they don't eat dinner or they skip breakfast? These are the kinds of things as parents that we tend to worry about. And not knowing what's going on with them in their day-to-day lives is an important part of their development. But as a parent, I have to tell you, it is gut-wrenching. You know, I know from my own experience with my daughter, when she was getting ready to go to school, she would say things that I couldn't even believe she said. She would say, well, Mom, I can't wait to go to school because now you're not going to be able to tell me what to do. And I looked at her and I said, Lucille, I am the associate dean. I can tell you what to do every day as long as you're here. You have one thing to say after that. So, but we worry about safety and health, what happens when they get sick for the first time. And we worry about finances too. We worry about, you know, our ability and sacrifices that we're making as a family. So all these things play into the conversations and the relationships that we're having. So let me tell you a little bit about how this works. We're going to ask the panel to comment on some general themes, some questions that, you know, we've seen come in from the participants so far. And then we'll stop and make sure that the questions that you are asking are being given to the panelists. So I invite you to continue sending your questions in. We're monitoring those, and our students who are here taping will help us manage those. And also, if you don't get your question answered, you know, during this live chat, we will make sure that you get an opportunity to have that answered more on a one-on-one basis. So you ready? If you need to pull out a tissue, feel free, but we are good to go. So obviously, when you send your student to college, send your student to university for the first time, we worry about a lot of things. So maybe can you talk about some of the things as a parent that you worried about? What were you most nervous about, and what did that look like for you and your student? So.
Sure. I think my wife and I had the typical parental anxieties like anybody else would in terms of our sons heading off to college. Obviously, they were 4 years apart, but still leaving the household, leaving the nest, so to speak, and going into a strange environment, yet a welcoming environment, was something that we were concerned about. You can probably well imagine the other concern I had would be whether or not my son, both sons, would fit in, given the fact that their father was the chief of the University Police Department on campus, and whether or not they would make any friends and be able to associate with anybody. But I can say very happily that they made a great number of friends. They were very active, both of them, in campus activities, and there's more than ample opportunity for your children as well to get involved in many, many activities on campus. And I would encourage you to do that. Like with our sons, they're very independent, so I didn't have to pay attention to them too closely. And quite honestly, I tried to stay below the radar because I didn't want to be out front, looking over their shoulder constantly, given my role on campus.
So I think my biggest concern with my oldest, Bennett Andrew, going off to college, initially he went to Suffolk, and I was really concerned about communication. I was used to having him in the household all the time, constantly having conversations with him. So I was a little concerned. So I'll tell you something that happened to him at Suffolk, and he's probably going to kill me, but I'm going to say it anyway. He went a week without calling me. So I took the initiative. Initially, I texted him and said, okay, call home. He didn't call. And then I called the dean and I asked him to do a wellness check because I was concerned. And to have his dean come into his classroom and say, call your mother, was embarrassing for him. Needless to say, when he transferred over to Bentley, that never happened. But parents, I want to encourage you to understand that they're going to be really busy and they're going to tell you, have a conversation about their schedules and when they're going to call home. Set up FaceTime if they have siblings. As I said, I have 4 sons. And my younger sons were very attached to their older brother. So he set up weekly meetings to talk with them. And it was FaceTime so that they could actually have conversations. So talk to your young people about when they're calling home and when they're available, because they're going to be busy. So for me, communication was key. When he came to Bentley, I was comfortable because this is where I work. And I'm thinking I'll see him all the time. No, he made appointments like every other student. And I did not go into his space, his dorm, until he invited me in. So parents, this is their experience. You have done great work. Their morals and their values don't go away because they're not away from you. I experienced that with the oldest. Knowing that I gave the university good stuff to work with, I wasn't worried. When he got to Bentley, it was even easier for me. There are so many resources on campus that I knew as a transfer student, if he got involved, he would have a great time. He used his resources, and that's important. He had an incredible mentor and one of the faculty members, Professor Wong, who took him under his wing. But had he not made that initial contact and had conversations with him, his experience may have been different. So I'm going to encourage you as parents to talk to your young people before they leave, set up a schedule of when they're going to call. And if they know their academic schedule already, be aware of when they're going to be in class so that you're not worried. And understand, if they don't call, sometimes no news is good news, but don't panic. If you need us, we're here. You can call and we'll make sure that they're okay. But understand, you've done a great job. It's just their freedom. They're testing their freedom. So establish your lines of communication right away.
Great, thank you. And Brooks, we were talking about this earlier. You had some interesting things to say about your experience.
Well, for me, having been here for so long, my son, 2 months after he was born, was attending a Bentley first football game. So it wasn't, and we live right down the road, so it wasn't the distance or not being comfortable at the university. My thing that I, like the chief said, was really worried that would some of the kids, because they knew me, they knew that he was my son, would he fit in? Would he be able to make new friends, get along with his roommate, like probably most of you may be concerned with also. I also think that one of the biggest concerns was, will he be able to actually handle both the academic rigor as well as the baseball and traveling and the practices and the games. You know, it was concerning at first, but again, because of the resources that they have here, if an athlete or any student has any problems classroom-wise, the tutors and the academic help and services that they have, that fear went away very, very quickly.
Okay. What about, you know, whether or not anybody of your students, or did you worry about whether or not business was the right field of study? Was that gonna, you know, what would that be like for him?
I was
You
a
did.
little bit, only because he had only taken, I think, an economics class in high school, but he was very math oriented. He said that after the economics class, he really liked it, thought about finance right off the bat. And I told him, don't come to Bentley just because I've worked here for so long, everyone expects you to go there. Once he got here and he got into the classroom and started his studies, he did like it, and knock on wood, he's had great success academically there.
Right. Thinking back to your students' first semester at Bentley, because that's what we're talking about, right? You're coming here, you're going to drop your student off, and you're going to go home, and they will stay here. What was their biggest challenge?
I'm thinking about with Bennett when he transferred into Bentley, and I was a little concerned about the rigor. I knew that he had gone to a really good high school, and even the curriculum at Suffolk was comparable to Bentley, but I work here, so I know what the students complain about. So I was a little concerned. And we had a conversation about that. He is not a lover of math, so I knew he would have to take his math sequence here. So I made sure that he knew where his resources were and that he sought help. As a transfer student, it's kind of hard because you're trying to make new friends and you're looking for avenues and resources. So if they tap into the resources and they take advantage of it, it's going to make their life so much easier. So I include certain things when I'm talking to them. I'll give them little clues like, did you go to the math lab today? Knowing that math is not his favorite subject. Oh, what did you find out? Or I'll ask them about a professor and whether or not he read the syllabus. So it's important for them to get involved, but use the resources that are in camp, especially our learning centers.
I want to go back to something that we talked about a little bit earlier, because I know that we've got a lot of questions coming in and we want to make sure that we give that some space. But I think, Claudette, you had referenced communication and making sure you set up a schedule, but can you talk a little bit about what that was like? Because, you know, I think often, especially in the age of cell phones and texting and emails, we're able to be in constant contact with our children or our students, and they might not want that, even though we have a need to know. So did that present as an issue? How did you resolve that? You know, you already referenced some things, but, you know, Brooks?
My biggest concern communication-wise was being in the dugout, because again, with him on the baseball team and working the sport, that it may be uncomfortable for him. I didn't see him every day. I don't think he wanted to see me every day. I again tried to reinforce to his mother to let him be. Everything was all right. Feel free to text him, call him, talk to him. And again, he was able to, after a few weeks, and once he got situated and felt comfortable, then he started more or less filling us in on how everything was going, schedule-wise, class-wise, baseball-wise. And, you know, we didn't jump on him or try to make him call us every day. As Claudette said, it was no news is good news. I didn't see him every day, even though everyone thought I probably would. And again, as the weeks went by, he started to feel a little bit more comfortable with everything.
Yeah, I would say too, the communications piece, I never hovered over my sons. Again, I told them I was available when they needed me. Interestingly enough, just a little funny story, my youngest son, the comedian Andrew, was telling parents, fellow students at the time that when they asked him, is your father the chief of police, he would say, no, that's not my father. Until it came time for him to come to my office and go to the bookstore and have me buy books. And at that point, I told him, I don't believe I'm your father, so you'll have to go find out where your father is and go buy your books. But again, like I said earlier, I just stayed below the radar. They knew I was accessible. The only thing I asked both of them to do during their time at Bentley was to call home and speak to their mother once in a while, because she didn't have the advantage of seeing them as much as I did.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And I know that we're getting a lot of questions coming in, so let's make sure that we do that now.
Yeah, so my first question is, what were you guys pleasantly surprised and unpleasantly surprised about starting out, just with your son or daughter?
Claudette?
With my son Bennett, I was pleasantly surprised that he became this incredible cook. I was like, oh wow, this is fantastic. So they are going to learn some incredible skills, but for me, it was him coming home, Mom, I'll cook. I was like, yes. The mother of 4 sons, that is definitely a benefit.
Throw laundry in there too. They learn how to do their own laundry, and that is great when they come home. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I was pleasantly surprised that they did very well academically. We were a little concerned in that, as people said, the rigors and the challenges of the academic courses here can be a little difficult, but their first semester they did absolutely fantastic, and we were very happy about that.
The other thing was a pleasant surprise too. He learned how to budget his money. Yes, and he stopped asking me for it. So yeah, it was a nice surprise. I get excited about that.
How did you get that to happen, Claudette?
Well, initially we would give him a certain amount every week. And I just think him being here, he just decided, okay, Mom, I'm gonna grow up. And he's always had a job. So he started to use his own funds, but he learned to budget his resources. So it made me extremely pleased.
Okay. And Rob, there's another part of that question, yes?
Yes, so how much money should we put into Falcon funds versus the bank account?
Aha.
Because there's 2 different accounts here.
There
Falcon
are
funds.
2 different accounts. So how much money should parents put on the Falcon Funds
Yep.
account?
Versus the bank
As to how
account.
much should they put in your bank account? Okay.
I will go to that budgeting question, parents. Take it from someone who's been through this. Establish what they need. If we're talking about books, I would say put their book money into their bank account. Falcon Funds, I think they should give you a budget and you tell them what you're going to give them per month, because they will spend as if there's a tree in the backyard and you're shaking it. So I think you should establish some parameters about spending. And I would say $50, but students would say 25. So on Falcon Funds, 25, because they have some discretionary funds on their account.
You know, and I guess the way that I would answer that, I would echo what Claudette said. Have honest conversations with your students about money, whether it's their spending money that they have saved over the summer to, you know, be able to socialize and spend that. The Boston area can be an expensive area, but there are a number of things to do with the university that cost little or no money. Students do want to go into Boston and they can spend a lot of money, but they can also not spend a lot of money. And I think there's a lot of understanding about what a college student budget is. There is a lot included in the tuition and activities fee and fees that you pay as a parent or that your student pays. And if you need help navigating that, we're happy to have individual conversations with you.
What if my child has roommate problems?
That would never happen. What if your student has roommate problems?
I am going to strongly encourage you. Let them work it out. They are young adults and they can make a contract, and there are things that they're agreeing to and things that they won't agree to. But whatever you do, let them resolve it, because it teaches them problem solving skills. And this is something they're going to need in the job world. My son had issues when he was here and he had to work it out with his roommates. And I strongly encouraged him to do that. I did not get involved. I wish I would have, but I did not get involved. It was hard to take that stand, but have them work it out, because they have resources on campus like their RAs and their resident directors and their resident assistants are here to help them maneuver the system. And it's a great staff. The parents, trust me, they will work it out and they will manage.
Anyone else want to?
I would just add, and if they can't work it out, as Claudette said, there's other resources through the Office of Residential Life, the residential center, where the staff can intervene and assist with both students to try to resolve any conflict that exists.
I think the big thing is make sure they give their roommates time. Because again, after the first week, classes and everything starting to get in the flow of things, they may not like them or have some issues maybe the first day, first week, but give it some time before all of a sudden they want to say, all right, I need a new roommate, this isn't going to work.
Mhm. And also know that many of our students do not currently share a room. So living in a space with another person or living in a space with more than one person is a negotiation skill, but having honest conversations with the people in your room about your preferences and your likes, whether you like to get up early, listen to loud music, have a white noise machine, whatever it is, those are important conversations. So.
Does the university provide any resources to a student who is maybe inexperienced with traveling and they arrive to Logan late and need help getting to Bentley?
Yes, we will help your student. Hopefully that if your student is going to be late coming to orientation, I would encourage you to please notify us in advance so that we can help to figure that out. We certainly don't want to leave a student stranded at the airport, and some students who are participating in programs like the Faraway Falcons program, we have made accommodations and work that out for them. But if your student is going to be late or you're running into trouble, please call us. Please email the GA_orientation email account so that we can figure out how to help your student.
The next one is they would appreciate any safety tips, especially if they have a daughter they're pretty concerned about walking at night and being around and about. What's the system for that? What are some of the resources?
Sure. When your students come to campus for the first week, there will be safety presentations that I and members of my staff will provide to all the incoming students. Talk about safety tips, how to remain safe both on and off campus, the resources available to them in terms of the university police. We have a number of services available if students feel uncomfortable walking from one point on campus to another. We have a personal escort service that we can provide. We have shuttles that run on campus in a loop as well as off campus during our scheduled times. And we work closely with the surrounding police and law enforcement agencies to encourage them to also work with us to address any issues of concern that students have, whether they live on campus or off. So again, as we've said before, there are plenty of resources available, and we will be providing plenty of information to them, both in writing and in presentations with regard to safety and security.
And your department is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Yes, 365, we never close, and we are here and available. And I've got a staff of 42 people within the department, 26 police officers, 6 security officers, 6 dispatchers, and a number of administrative staff as well. And lastly, just so I can wrap up our section, we also have on campus our what we call our blue light phones or help phones. They are all over the campus, in parking lots in the perimeter of the campus, within buildings, the residence halls, and at the front of various buildings throughout the campus. So if anybody at any time feels concerned or alone and they need to get in touch with someone, they can simply push a button, and that will connect them directly to our police dispatcher, which will open up a speaker, and we can have a conversation with them, either send an officer down to help them out or provide them with information as to where they need to go.
Great, thank you.
Should students wait until the first day of class before purchasing textbooks?
I say they should literally look online, because we have Blackboard established for our classrooms. I would encourage them to email their professors, but look online to see what textbooks are required. Whatever you do when you purchase your books, don't open them until you go to class, because if you don't need that textbook, you can return it to the bookstore. Some students like to pre-read, but you want to make sure that it's the right textbook for the right class. There are different classes here. For expository writing, we have at least 10 different sections, and it may require different books. So I would say if you purchase your books, wait till you go to class to open them or unseal them.
I would add, and the Barnes & Noble bookstore, which is our provider on campus, has several options for students. Some books are available on a rental basis, which is a little bit more affordable. Some books students may want to purchase, but Claudette's, I think that's spot on. Make sure that you're talking with your faculty member about the textbook. I would also say that you want to set yourself up as much as possible with the resources that you need. I've heard stories about students who share textbooks, and that's great until they both have an exam the next day and both need that textbook or that resource at the same time. So think about that, but the bookstore does have several options.
The next question has to do with snow days. How often do they usually happen, and does it interfere with the final schedule? Because one of the parts of it that this parent mentioned was how that could interfere, and sometimes the makeup day would be after finals, so they're just wondering about how that works.
Mm-hmm.
I can answer in terms of, it's my department's responsibility from a public safety standpoint to determine whether or not we need to cancel classes, delay classes, or dismiss classes early as a result of a snowstorm. You know, we're in New England, and as they say, just wait a couple of minutes and the weather's going to change. So last year we had a relatively light winter. A couple of years back, we had an extremely heavy snowfall with a number of cancellations and delays that kicked in. So it really depends on the weather patterns, but we keep abreast of those as the storm is approaching. I will consult with other administrators on campus to make the final determination as to whether or not we need to close, cancel, delay, or dismiss early.
And I think the priority for that is the safety of the campus, and that if we can safely open the campus, we will do so. We also have a system where sometimes university opening is delayed, not necessarily always canceled. So I think that's a happy surprise for some students, and it's a very big surprise for some students as well.
The other question that parents want to know about is how often is the shuttle utilized, particularly going to Boston as a resource?
Okay. We have a terrific schedule and a system where we have I think this was mentioned earlier, that we have a service that moves around campus known as the campus loop. We also have a Harvard Square shuttle, which will bring students into Harvard Square and back from Harvard Square. That service runs very early in the morning, Monday through Friday, so that people who are attending class from outside the university can get here. I think it starts about 7 in the morning and it runs until midnight. So it's an easy way for students to get back and forth from the city. The schedule is available online, so you can, certainly take a look at that. But we will spend time at the beginning of the semester helping students understand how to use that. It's also an easy way for students to get into Boston to enjoy some of the opportunities in Harvard Square or Boston on the weekends. So that's a free service and one that students do take great advantage of.
So are there any places where my students can rent a storage space/room on campus?
What a great question. I don't, we'll have to get back to you on that, but on campus, we don't provide, storage rental. I think for some students, for some students who are coming from quite a distance up at North Campus, there might be some, short-term opportunities. I think the students are giving us some information right now, so. But there is a storage unit about 10 minutes away, or a storage facility that has been a great resource for students. So we can post some information up on the website as far as that goes. But certainly if you're worried about storage in between semesters, students do not have to take their belongings home between the semester break, but they can leave those on campus.
Also, are refrigerators and microwaves available to rent for their dorms?
In the first year residence halls, those are not provided, but some of the, those are not typical in terms of being provided with the room. But as you get into sophomore, junior, and senior options, some of our facilities have those as part of the unit or the suite.
You can rent, there's a site for it as well.
Okay. Okay. I don't remember renting a refrigerator for my daughter. I think her roommates had that. You did?
No, it's new this year.
It's new this year.
Yeah.
Okay. But I would also say that is a great conversation for your student to have with their roommate or their roommates, so that you don't show up with 4 refrigerators or 3 refrigerators on day 1, 3 televisions. Encourage your student to talk with their roommate about who wants to bring what, and we'll make sure that that information is available on the website about rental companies and what the fees for that are. So that's a great question.
This is an orientation question. Moving, what is the best plan for a parent or child on move-in day? Do we set up and leave? Do we attend the convocation? That sort of thing.
But, you know what, that's a great question, and I know that tomorrow, families of new students will be receiving I'm sorry, not tomorrow, on Monday, an email is going out to all parents of new students with a complete schedule for the August 22nd move-in day. If you are a residential student, your student should have received information about their assigned move-in time. And the day is a robust day. It is a fun-filled day, but we really encourage families to stay all the way through the convocation ceremony. So if you plan on staying on campus until about 4 o'clock, that is helpful.
Another parent wants to know what's the best transportation for around campus. Like, what do most students do? Do they walk? Do they ride their bike? Scooter around campus? What's the
Everything.
everything?
It's very hilly campus. So to, again, walk-wise, up and down the hill from lower campus up to upper campus may not be for everyone. So bike, the shuttle, as we've talked about already. But driving-wise, not really recommended. Being incoming freshmen and everyone probably won't have a car on campus anyways.
Which is a great, Chief, can you talk a little bit about
Yes, yeah, as a matter of policy at the university, first-year students are not authorized to have a vehicle on campus because we simply don't have enough parking space for the incoming class. However, we do make exceptions for students who have either financial hardships or medical conditions that require them to have regular transportation to and from a doctor's appointment. The other thing I will mention to you that we have a number of zip cars on campus that students have the availability to rent on an hourly basis. There's a charge associated with that, and they will get information about that as well. So we encourage all first-year students to keep their cars at home. If they do need it, they need to contact the university police through our website to request a special consideration to receive a pass specifically for first-year student parking. And we restrict the location of that parking to one parking lot on campus. And we will provide the students with that and have them sign a written contract so they understand what the rules are pertaining to having a vehicle on campus.
You guys mentioned illnesses. That actually ties into a question that was asked. Does anyone on the panel have any experience with a child who has had type 1 diabetes or another chronic illness? And what are some of the resources for a student in that case?
I would say if you have concerns in that area, the health service staff here is outstanding. They do a great job working with us in athletics, but also as far as with first-year students, with anyone with any type of illness, injuries from intramurals, just in general. And I would, by all means, contact Jerry Taylor, who is the Director of Health Services. Her information should be up on the website, and they'd be able to help answer anything that would be related to that.
You know, I think all parents worry about, you know, students' physical health. And, you know, I remember getting a call from my son, my oldest son, and it was one of those, I can't get out of bed. I don't know what to do. And I was blown away at, you know, his response. I said, well, you probably have a fever. Do you know how to take your temperature? And he said, no. How do I do that? And I was like, this is going to be a very long process for us. But students who are managing more significant illnesses certainly should make sure that you are in contact with the health center before your arrival. All students should have filled out a health form. If you have not filled that out and made sure that students received an email from the director of the health center on July 24th, talking about the services for the health center, you are receiving, as parents, you will receive a copy of that on Monday. But the health form is really important so that the health center is aware of any issues that your student is trying to manage so that they can make sure that those resources are in place. Okay.
Is there a dress for convocation? Like, do you have to be casual or business casual? Is there any dress code for that?
I'm going to encourage you to be comfortable. Watch the weather.
Yes.
Because if you're comfortable, you're going to enjoy convocation.
So what that means is leave the big heels at home, leave your dress clothes at home. It is typically a warm day. I mean, it is August, and I think somebody mentioned that the campus is hilly, or the campus, the topography, but you will be moving around campus. If you're moving a student into the residence hall, you will likely be climbing stairs. We want you to be comfortable that day, so, you know, it is summer, and that's how we expect you to dress. Yes, the students are reminding me that for the convocation ceremony, we will have shuttle service from the main campus to lower campus beginning at 1 o'clock. That will go all the way until 5 o'clock, so that you will be able to return to the main campus using the shuttle if that's your preference. On an interesting note, it is about an 8-minute walk from the main campus down to the lower campus. So, you know, most of our students on campus do walk, and there's a footbridge which makes crossing Beaver Street very easy and accessible and safe.
This next question seems like would be a good question for Brooks. It's about speaking between the balance between school and athletics, especially if you've heard anything about members of the cross country or track team.
That team in particular probably is academically the strongest team on campus. So if your son or daughter is on that team, congratulations. Cross country will usually practice during the early afternoons, and then most of their meets are on Saturdays. So unlike a lot of the athletic teams, there's no competition or games during the week, which for them may academically make things a little bit easier. Again, there's all of the freshmen, I believe, have tutors or any academic problems that they may have. They have academic advisors, and then they can also receive, waiting for academic help though, through not only kids on their team, but also other student athletes from other teams. Cindy Scott, who's the assistant athletic director, is also in charge of all the athletes' academic affairs. So they are really, you know, monitored. If they do have any problems or any help, then they can see Cindy Scott, and she'll set them up with tutors to help as far as with any questions or any problems that they do have.
You know, I think it's important to add one of the great philosophies of Bentley for our student athletes is they are student athletes, and the athletic department takes that commitment to being a student first very seriously. So although the time commitment may be a little bit different for a varsity collegiate athlete, there is a lot of support for them to be successful. In fact, our student athletes have a fairly high GPA collectively, so that's something we're very, very proud of. But just like all students, if you're feeling like you need some additional support, help, whether it's academically or with support for out of the classroom activities or events, just ask. So with that, I think we have time for a few more questions. So I want to be cognizant of your time as well. So if you have a burning question, make sure you get it in so we can pay attention to that.
This is another travel question. It's about the first couple of breaks that they're going to be having, so Thanksgiving and Christmas break in particular. Are they on their own for that, going into the airport and stuff, or does Bentley provide any resources for that holiday travel?
What I've noticed that students do during the travel season, they usually will come together and decide how they're going to get back and forth to the airport. Some of them arrange transportation for themselves. They Uber back and forth. They literally will, if a parent is on campus, they'll hitch a ride. What I've seen them do is they take the shuttle and then they take the train. So they become very resourceful when they're here. But as far as Bentley providing the transportation, no. By that time, they've gone through freshman seminar and they've learned how to actually access public transportation for themselves.
The campus is open during the Thanksgiving break. You know, the residence halls are open, so students do not have to go home. They do not have to leave the residence hall if they choose to stay on campus. So I think that's something else, you know, to know. But public transportation does make the airport, the trains, and other access points accessible.
In terms of the shuttle, another shuttle question. Is there just places on the shuttle's route, namely to Harvard Square, where you could take students shopping to local stores for supplies?
There aren't. I feel like that's a better question for you guys, in some ways to answer. But the shuttle does have access points to a grocery store, to pharmacies, to other shopping centers and hardware stores. Bob, do you have another question?
Yes, we do. In terms of storage in the dorm rooms, are there dressers available, or should we plan for underbed storage as well?
I will tell you that the Residential Life Center has an incredible video on the orientation website under Family Resources, which gives more specific information in terms of dimensions and some of the things that students typically bring. But students are pretty creative in terms of how much underbed storage that they are able to manage.
Well, my son's roommate,
Anything you want to sell?
yeah, could buy, right, these platforms more or less that he could put his bed up on, that gave him more space underneath to store stuff.
Yeah.
I think he might have even bought them either in the bookstore or at Target, but they were able to just slide them underneath the bed, the legs of the bed, raised it up, and then they had all that extra space.
What is discussed during orientation that was not addressed in online orientation?
Well, that's a hard question to answer, given that the orientation program is about 5 days long. But the goal of that program is to allow students to connect with other students, to explore the campus and really walk through and navigate what it's like to be a student here. So students have a lot of things that they're learning about, that they're talking about, but I would say for as a parent, watching my own student go through that and what they learned was really how they were going to connect here, and feeling like, for my daughter going through the Bentley orientation, she left that feeling like I belong here and this is where I can be successful. So that was really important. But your students all went through that too.
I think the transfer orientation was key for my son, because he was coming in where other students had already made their friends, and actually being able to talk to other students that were going through the same process that he was going through made it really simple for him and a lot easier. And two, some of his great friends came out of that orientation. So it's important that when they're here, the things that you don't see on the website or we haven't explained, it's all of the networking pieces and learning to communicate and facilitate conversation. That's something that's really important that our students get out of the orientation. Great group of friends as a result, and they get to socialize and learn about the campus and its resources.
I know when my son went through orientation, halfway through the day, I just texted him and said, "How's it going?" And he was like, "I don't know if I'm going to survive here." And I was like, "Well, why do you say that?" Because I don't know. It's just hard to really just see me staying here for the whole 4 years. By the end of that first day, he was like, it was great. And it was just night and day from within a 4-hour period of how he was originally to how it was. And by the time he got home from orientation, it was like, yeah, no, I'm glad with my decision. I feel comfortable here. He made new friends, guys who he probably wouldn't have met, as far as, they weren't on his team or whatever, but he met a lot of kids and friends that he still interacts with.
And the program is, being in a new space, navigating new geography, waking up in a new room is uncomfortable, and it can be nerve-wracking. So the orientation program is intentionally designed by the time that classes start. Students are well prepared to walk around campus. They know where their classes are. They know who their roommates are. They know who's in their building. They know where their resources are. And oftentimes the upperclassmen will look at our first-year students and say, they seem like they've been here forever. So it's incredibly helpful.
I'm going to hit you guys with a tough one. How is underage drinking handled here?
That's a great question.
Well, I can respond first of all from the campus law enforcement side. The legal drinking age in Massachusetts is 21 years of age. And if we end up having any issues related to alcohol, there's a process that we follow. Typically, it involves either a member of the Res Life staff or a member of the university police getting called. We serve as another resource to the campus community and provide teachable moments. We're not into difficult tactics, hardline tactics in terms of dealing with certain issues, especially related to alcohol. However, we do, as part of our safety presentation, talk to students about responsible drinking, remind them of the legal drinking age, and that invariably, if they end up drinking on campus, then we may get involved in it, or it may just be a conversation they have with our wellness center and our other drug and alcohol resource coordinator, or somebody from the Dean of Students office.
I think the most important thing that you can do as a parent is to have honest conversations with your students about your expectations around alcohol and alcohol use. You know, what you expect, what your family expects may be different than what your student expects. As Chief said, you know, our policies do follow the law, which we are required to do. But we also want students to make good decisions, and we give them a lot of tools given and education so that they are able to make good decisions. I will also tell you from national statistics and research that our wellness center and health educator has done that social norming is incredibly important. So it's a high percentage of students who choose not to use alcohol at all. And there are a lot of activities and networks to be able to support those decisions. So they are making healthy and responsible choices.
Alcohol at all.
We have time for, we're going to take about 2 more questions, knowing that, you know, y'all are really busy. And so we'll take 2 more and then we'll give you some information as to how to wrap up and how to follow up with us.
Should students bring traditional school supplies like binders, notebooks, or is it most of the work done via computer?
That's a great question.
Thinking about the study habits of your student, it varies. A lot of our students, because they have their laptops, they take notes online, but I still believe in pads and pencils. So it depends upon your student, and it's really important that they determine what they need. I would say if you can bring a small amount of supplies on campus, it would be helpful. But keep in mind, they're going to use their laptops for everything. And I mean literally everything. There's a note-taking app, and some of them use a voice-activated app that will actually type up their notes. Unbelievable. But it's available. So depending upon your student and what they need, I would suggest that you bring a small amount, and they can determine whether or not they need additional supplies. And we have a bookstore on campus. We have a Falcon market as well. So if they need to pick up those things, they can do that here.
I will say that one of the things students are very surprised about is the amount of reading that they are expected to do in their first year. So if your student is not used to reading, you might want to have a conversation because some of the coursework requires, you know, a lot of extra attention. Another question that, you know, I'm hearing about concerns about hazing and how is that handled on campus. So, you know, and I think any of us could answer that, you know, from our different perspectives, but maybe let's start with athletics.
Athletically, you state every student athlete signs a waiver that they will not haze, and consequence-wise, policy of the school as far as the NCAA is, they will be dealt with, and usually that is with expulsion from the team.
So I'm thinking about just some of the things that I've heard across campus. My son didn't experience it, but when it arises, it's handled right away. And they do it with care, because sometimes our students do things and they don't realize they're hazing someone. So they have to actually learn with a gentle reminder that they can't do certain things. And it's in the student handbook as well. So from what I've experienced, that between the resident directors and the resident assistants, they literally nip it in the bud right away if they find that there is something going on.
Person transferred.
And I would add 2 comments on that, you know, our student programs and engagement office does a wonderful job, very robust educational program with regards to what types of behaviors might be considered hazing or could be considered hazing. So there's a lot of effort, outreach, and education. And in fact, our student organizations have a very high standards policy where they're reporting and making sure that they all understand what those guidelines are. So we do have a 0 tolerance policy for hazing. I would also say that if you suspect or you're worried that something is going on, please let us know. You know, we certainly want to support you. We don't know everything that happens on campus, But when we are made aware of something, we do address it pretty quickly and, rigorously, because safety of students is our primary goal.
Just a lot of comments coming in. They was thanking you guys for the great session. I just let you guys know that, and also they just want you to know if there's any additional ways that they can contact you guys in the future if they have any more questions.
What a great way to wrap up.
Yeah.
So, we want to thank you for the time that you have spent today. We will be posting this session online, so you'll be able to watch it as many times as you want. But the information will be available to you. And the easiest way right now is if you have additional questions, please email the GA_orientation@bentley.edu email account. And we'll make sure that those questions, are responded to on an individual basis. When the video posts on Monday, we will also put up our individual contact information. So if you had specific questions for the chief, Claudette, Brooks, or myself, that you can, message us individually. With that, we want to thank you for the time that you have spent here today and invite you to continue enjoying your Thursday night, and know that we are now very close to only 12 days away when we will be able to meet you in person and a little bit more importantly, meet your student. But know that you are a very important part of our family, and one of the things that helps us support your student is to be able to have honest conversations with you. So please, let's keep the dialogue open, and we look forward to seeing you very, very shortly.
Well, okay.